of War Thunder replays submitted by a dear friend of mine. First off, he starts off in a British biplane diving upon an enemy aircraft. He slightly overcooks the approach, they both roll over attempting to get behind one another, and then shreds him with machine gun fire as they scissor in front of one another. Going into a full hard bank, he hurls his aircraft around, bringing it around onto a Fury Mark II, destroying it. Jumping into the second replay, he annihilates his first victim and then sets his sights on the Ki-21. Climbing at full web, he's trying to minimize the altitude advantage that the Ki-21 has as he approaches him from beneath and to the side. With the Ki-21 unaware, he fires on him with his cannons, taking him out with the first shot. Then rotating onto a PBY, this will be entertaining. He lights him up with a single cannon shot, shredding him, quite possibly shearing off his wings in their totality. There is something really rather satisfying about shooting large aircraft like that with cannons. He then rotates onto a Heinkel 51C, taking that out with another burst of the old faithful cannons. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with a real treat. He starts in a screaming dive with an enemy Typhoon above him and 3 enemy aircraft below. He elects to sacrifice his altitude for speed and energy, sighting the nearest enemy aircraft below to blow it out of the sky. He momentarily surveys the battlefield before diving in for the attack, preparing his cannons for a couple of quick bursts. He closes in on the enemy, steadies his aim, and fires, annihilating him with the first round. He then continues his momentum and annihilates his second victim. Rotating around and upwards, he scans behind himself for any pursuers, sights one of them, possibly takes a round as it goes soaring past, but the Typhoon is out of there at far too high a speed for him to be able to catch up. So he continues the circling climb or spiraling climb as he surveys for his next victim. The Typhoon is smoking, leaking oil, and is out of there. He then sights the P-40 that looks as if he's setting himself up for some sort of a strafing run. He sets him on an intercept course, checks his ammunition supplies, lights him up with machine gun fire to force him nice and low. As the P-40 strafes the armoured column, he hits him with not 1, but 2 cannon blasts. Then he circles around again back towards an enemy cluster of fighters, heading towards the left just to try and pick off those 2 stragglers. Of course, then he spots the D-521 that is heading towards him at a high rate of speed, but then decides to quickly keep an eye on this F2A due to its proximity of about 1.8 kilometers. All the while, he's constantly evaluating targets, seeing who's lagging behind, seeing who's the closest, seeing who's the greatest threat to him and his team. He sees the F2A, but then realizes that D, whatever it is, has rapidly closed the gap and is probably going to be making a strafing run on him in the next few seconds. He waits until the last possible moment and then wrenches his control surfaces to bring his aircraft to bear in a frantic 200-meter head-on pass, annihilating him with those cannons. Following that latest aerial victory, he dives onto the sandwich train up ahead, but then realizes it's a slightly better opportunity to go for this F-something aircraft that's currently on the 6 of a friendly Illusion 2. He's frantically attempting to close speed before the enemy aircraft, the F4U, is able to bring the friendly aircraft down. He's trying to conserve his ammunition, both due to the limited loadout and the proximity of a friendly aircraft. He knocks off a gear leg, hoses him down with machine gun fire, and forces him into the ground in what I really have to say was a rather graceful kill. Once again checking behind himself for any pursuers, he then locks onto the Yak-7, which isn't exactly a bad target to knock out. Once again, keeping an eye to that major furball to the left, he tries to get the Yak 7 in a head-on pass, but just wasn't quite able to bring his guns to bear. Scissoring across him, he scores a hit, possibly on his tail, but in this turn fight, he's only really able to score minor damage, as he just doesn't quite have the engine power, the maneuverability, to keep his guns on target. Scoring additional shots, he manages to score a kill assist, which will have to do. Now there's a major cluster to the left, so he's going to chart a course to the right, with enemy aircraft breaking away from the pack, head-on pass, score some light damage to the mid/rear fuselage or cockpit area. He rotates around back onto the Bf-109 at 800 meters in range. With the Bf-109 banking towards him, he prepares for a head-on pass, and oof, that one scratched the paint on the way past. He now selects another Bf-109 in the next replay, and is attempting to bring him down with cannon fire, though this little bastard is proving quite difficult to hit. He shears off what looks like part of his wing. Yes, it was the very outer edge. Scissoring up and around each other, they're both trying to bleed off speed, so their other aircraft sits in front of them, and he just detonates the poor little blackguard with cannon rounds point blank. Now here on the cannon map, we're going to see what momentum management and this aircraft can do in a confined space. One of the things that will help you to stay alive in War Thunder arcade battles is never staying fixated on one target for too long and not flying in a straight line for too long a time period, because doing so will make you stand out like a sore thumb and will give the enemy aircraft plenty of time to set themselves up for an approach. So he sights up an enemy cluster of aircraft, about 5 or 6 of them, with one of them heading in a head-on pass, and well, head-on pass for the aircraft as cannons. It almost ends like the way you would have predicted it, but he uses the momentum that he had to nail an enemy aircraft, rolls back down around to try and score additional. There we go, he is annihilated out of the air. So 2 kills in quick succession, and he rounds himself onto a Buffalo, almost knocking it out of the sky by just his rounds landing slightly behind him. He then goes onto a HE-112, letting that soar past, then goes back onto the Buffalo, arcing down and around as he sees him angling up and over to perform an Immelman. And well, the poor blackguard has his tail just quite simply blown off. And ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for today's episode. We'll see you around. This is Cowardly Hamesico signing off. As ever, if you like the video, please leave a like, and if you're feeling especially generous, have a subscription. This is Cowardly Hames signing off. Goodbye.